Hello, Roboticon. Good to see everybody. I'm Scott, for those who don't know. We've got some content for you. Tonight, we're going to be talking about what's coming up this weekend, what has been happening this week, which expires in just a couple of days. You've got a weekend to do it. We've got some people here to talk about it with me, and that includes Brian. Hello, how are you?
Hey, it's going well, going well.
We spent all weekend last weekend talking about first robotics competition, and we had the pleasure of talking about the CAD challenge, which is now underway and has just a couple days left, right?
Yeah, it's got just a couple days left here. Monday at midnight, I believe, is the submission, the 18th. And we had somebody join in just as the push came into Tuesday from China. So officially,
Wow.
we have a official global ROBOTICON CAD challenge.
Wow, that's awesome.
So I was pretty excited to see that. Now we're up to, I believe, 7 or 8 teams participating inside of this one of them being 1902, my own. And I'm hoping that all of the students, even if they don't submit anything and we don't have much to show off, I want it to be that this is a great way to get us reboosted into where we're going next year. Because I mean, season's right around the corner. And for most of us, we've just been relaxed and not really feeling the stress of what it's like to have to design and build under stress.
Yeah.
And that's what Kevin and I decided to do when we brought in this CAD challenge. That's what we wanted to base it all around, was getting these students ready for the start of the season.
And I believe we have Kevin here with us as well to discuss the CAD challenge. There he is.
Hey, how you doing?
There he is.
Thanks for having me.
I feel weird being in the wrong Roboticon shirt, but this one has the logo real high, so I decided to wear this one.
That's right.
This logo's all the way down here.
So this one's just the logo. So I decided this one's evergreen. So I figured I'd wear this one. So let's talk about the CAD challenge. We all talked about it on Saturday, I think.
Yes.
Where we gave a heads up on what was coming. So for anybody who missed that, what are we looking at?
Do I have permissions to share screens?
Yeah, he has the field. He has everything. So now we can show off everything.
Great.
So he's going to pull up Field CAD, and you'll even be able to ask questions about the field now this time.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And it's important to note, if you're watching us live, I always say this, the best place to be is on Twitch, because that's where we can answer questions the best. So definitely ask your questions. If you have questions about the game or anything we talk about tonight, game night, which we'll be talking about later, put them in the chat. Michelle will bring them up, and we can talk about your questions and try and answer anything we can.
Brian, do you want to kick off explaining the game?
Yeah, sure. So we decided that a great game to do, since, the lack of competition, we decided to go and take in a sport that embodies the ideals of gracious professionalism, which is golf. Because if you look at every other sport, it gets really rowdy. Golf is probably the smoothest going, most relaxed game out of all of them. So we decided, hey, let's do a golf game this year. We ran with it. We kind of got stuck hive-minded on it. And this is the game that we came up with. It went through probably 3 iterations before it got to this design. We are doing quite a few things. I think we have, how many different ways to score the golf ball, Kevin?
Oh goodness. So if you count each individual level, you have 3, 8, 9 different ways?
8 or 9 different ways of scoring a singular game piece.
Yeah, which
And
is just ridiculous in comparison to past games, but we wanted to ensure that teams had something to. So the entire process behind the game was we wanted teams to control how much power these robots had, because in past years, you saw in 2013, 2018, 2020, 2021, teams just kind of threw motors at things, told them to spin as fast as possible, and just called it a day. There wasn't a lot of fine tuning of that power unless it came to those higher teams. And so we wanted to kind of force everyone to kind of think about, hey, we can't just full throttle this. We actually need to sit down, think about how much power to give. And so, even though there's 8 or 9 different ways to score the golf balls, it's really only 2 different things you need to do. You just need to shoot vertically precisely, and you need to be able to hit them horizontally at a certain force.
yeah. And then we brought back one of the least things seen in first, which was only seen 1 year prior. We brought back mini bots as well. And
Yes, sir.
on the far side of the field, that is where they go. Oh, look at
Yep.
that.
You deploy them onto these poles, and they have to drive up. And there's actually a piece of tape here, and the mini bot needs to be in that zone fully, not partially, has to be fully within the zone. And so the pole actually extends up above it. So again, this comes back to the control factor that we were talking about earlier, about how you can't just put a mini bot on a pole and launch it up at 20 feet per second and pray it doesn't break. You actually have to put it on the pole, send it up, have some sensor, touch sensor, color sensor that detects it and actually stops in between that line in order to get the maximum amount of points you can.
But yeah, that's what we have them doing. There's scoring into the corner goals there in the side.
Let's
We
see
have-
those.
Yeah. This was the fun thing that we had mentioned that was very much like 2017, but much smaller.
Yes. So this is actually quite a complicated model. This is the thing we actually decided to go on first because we knew that this would be the most complicated ruling, the most complicated to engineer, the most complicated point scoring because of the way we wanted it to work. And so it's again, we just went for it first because we knew it took the most effort. And when you start a project, you always have the most energy at the beginning. And so the way this works is so each one of the levels need to be activated before you can score them. And the top one, I can't select that. Let's see. Oh, Inventor is gonna be annoying.
This is
Whatever.
why Kevin is the CAD man.
So this top platform right here is the top level. This is the one that begins to be activated. And so when the match starts, that is worth 1 point. And once you score 35 balls into it, the level below it goes from being worth 2/3 of a point up to 2 points. And so it kind of incentivizes going from the top level to the middle level to the bottom level, which is what we were referring to when you need to be able to adjust how strong your robot is. And so as you work down these levels, you go from level 1 to level 2, from level 2 to level 3, they are increasingly worth more points, but only once you've scored enough balls in the previous level. I believe you have to score 35 balls in level 1 to activate level 2.
Yep.
And then once level 2 is activated, you need to score 35 balls to activate level 3. But in qualifications, if you want the ranking point, you have to score 50 balls into level 3 in order to get the ranking point for the corner goals. And so,
Oof.
yeah, it's quite a lot, but with robots being able to carry 10 balls a cycle and at any given time, and you have 3 robots working towards that goal, it makes it very easy. Unlike 2019, if you score balls into one of your corner goals, let's say 19 or row team 1 scores 10 balls into here for level 1, and your alliance partner score 20 in here, that still counts towards 30 towards the capacity to activate the next one, so that it's not as harsh as you've got 3 robots cramming around a rocket trying to put game pieces on it. And we didn't really like that because it caused a lot of physical defense, and you had teams like getting annoyed by each other. And so by making them both work towards the same capacity, it's much easier to do. You aren't in your alliance partner's way as much, and it's just a much better gameplay flow that we wanted.
It prevents the game from being like asset management,
Yep.
because there's not just a single bottleneck that is your problem.
And that is exactly what we were working to avoid, is because
Good.
that bottleneck is just frustrating. There's no real point of it being there, and it's something that we really wanted to solve on top of, hey, we're just going to take this power cell and shoot it 50 feet and hope it goes into a goal.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. Brian, would you like to explain how the center holes work?
Oh, okay. So the center part of the field, as we mentioned last week, was probably our biggest point of contention because it went through, I want to say, 3 different concepts before it got to where it was. And all of them wound up being mini game based. So like one of them was Plinko, another one was like a form of Connect 4, and then the third one was like, you know what, let's throw a shuffleboarding onto the field and see how that goes.
I still just want to play Connect 4 with robots. Sorry. I understand that was basically Relic Recovery, but still.
Yeah.
I didn't get to play that one.
Yeah.
I actually have one of the earlier versions of the center hole still.
Bring it. Let's see it so that you can see.
Oh, goodness gracious.
That's
man.
wild looking. What are we looking at here?
Brian, do you want to explain what this is?
Do I have to spin the thing in the middle?
No. So we made essentially C-ball as another one of the concepts. And what it was that on the field, we had 3 locations that you would go through, load some of the balls into, and they would funnel in, and they'd go into this. There it is. Look, he's showing it off right there, right on cue. This is what we called the tee. So you would load your golf ball into that little launcher, and you would just, for lack of a better term, yeet the heck out of that little plunger to go through and try and score the golf ball into any of those holes over there. And each hole, we didn't get as far as to scoring scoring into what area would cause what point value, because in all honesty, when you look at this thing is huge. Imagine what it would be like for field assembly to go through. I'd say that this thing is on par with the airship from 2017 as per size, and probably all of the LEDs that'll be on it, all of the beam breaks for scoring. It would have been absolutely insane. There's one of the original pictures.
Yeah, that looks wild in the middle of the screen, in the middle of the field.
Again, we had many iterations of this game, and so at one point we legitimately thought, this is what we want, this is what we want to see. But after putting it on the field and looking at it, we just kind of sat there and we're like, this is too big, because we wanted this field to be manufacturable and be able to be moved, and we wanted it to, actually represent the ideals that you want for a real field. And so
you don't want an entire semi-truck just for the centerpiece.
Exactly. I think this might be taller than the shield generator that Infinite Recharge had.
This is taller than the shield generator. It's taller than the boiler.
Yeah, it just wasn't ideal. Its footprint was massive. The way you scored into it was massive. And so we just didn't.
Yeah.
And we just especially didn't like how it looked, because it didn't feel golf themed anymore. And that was the whole point of the game. And so between all of that, we just threw it out the window, called it a day. And this is actually our first iteration of the field.
Yeah, that one.
I might be able to find more on the second iteration.
So let's talk about exactly how this guy functions.
Which one?
This one, the actual piece that we landed on. Okay. So how does this particular guy function?
So this one's a little bit of a fun. So we
I hope
made the
so.
concept. Yeah, we made the concept where on the edge of your putting green in a golf game, there is just that. It's called the fringe on the outside. So we wanted to symbolize that area. So what it is that inside of the scoring zone that is right in front of what we actually call the greens, um, you go through and you just do a little light tap into there. As you can see, the first green portion is actually pitched down. What angle did we set that at, Kevin?
2 degrees.
2-degree pitch. Then it goes into that flat area just in front so that it won't just go onto the steps and keep going down. And then it goes on to your stepping location where we call the alliance screens. And inside of this area, it's where you can actually score. So your first level is 6 points. Your second step is 8. Your third goes back to 6, right? Or is it 4?
It's super confusing. Let me pull up the points
It's
chart.
super confusing.
This is 2?
Really, that's
This
2?
is because it's auto. You were thinking about the auto numbers.
Oh, okay. Okay, there
Yep.
we go.
So that's 2, that's 4, that's 3, and that's 2.
And then scoring inside of the Phoenix, that's what we called it. The Phoenix, I believe it was, what was it? 4 points on the second step and 8 points on the 8 points on the second step, 4 points on the third step, right?
Someone hasn't memorized the points.
Listen, we have so many point values for this game.
So it's a 2 on the first step, 4 on the second, 3 on the third, and 2 on the last step, and then it's 8 within the Phoenix. The reason why it is worth 4 points for this step and 3 points for this step is, again, we wanted to reward teams for being careful. And so by making the step that's closer to you, but still in the center, so obviously harder to get to, more points, we're still incentivizing that goal. So there's a 33% bonus for doing that, but it's not enough to change the game, but it's enough to incentivize teams to be careful. And then you have your vision targets right here.
And then we didn't want it to be that if they went past the steps, they just kind of died, like they just become dead game pieces and they don't have any value anymore. So we made it that they actually refilter back out into the field. So they'll go down the sharper pitch there, filter out through the sides onto the field so that they can go through and be reused to go and try and score them again.
Yep, which is actually the one thing that we didn't cat into this field.
Yeah.
Everything else is there except for that.
Okay. So I think we've got an idea of how the game plays. So what is it we're looking for? If we're a team that's competing in this CAD challenge, what is it that your team is looking for?
Interesting. What are we looking for here? I'd say I don't want anything too complex for this game because it is very much you have one game piece and one other thing that you have to really do in your end game, which is go and score the mini bot. And because of that, I'm actually expecting much smaller robots than what we're used to seeing in FRC, because we're seeing sometimes 5 foot tall, 120-inch frame perimeter, 150-pound behemoths with battery and bumpers on. These guys can get away with being much smaller in like that 70 to 80-pound range to also include and leave room for the weight of their mini bot, because that's also included inside of the robot's weight capacity. So I'd be expecting something that's pretty nimble with movement, because you're probably going to be seeing a good number of golf balls throughout the field, and you don't want it to be that you're getting stuck on them every now and again. I'd like to see something that is able to score the golf balls well, because I won't just say that you need to shoot, because one thing that we didn't mention, the reason why it's 50 inside of the corner goals as well for the third level, if you look at that bottom slot, if we can pull that up again, there is a slot opening there. So we made it that teams that aren't comfortable making a shooter can just build a robot that'll just dump the golf balls into that third level.
Okay.
So it was just
to touch on that. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah,
But
go
to
ahead.
touch on that, we wanted rookies to be able to easily score into these goals, and so if you we actually paid attention to this. If you look at the pro shops, the human player stations, there's a chute that is higher off the ground than the lower one. And so this is specifically for rookies because that is higher than the slot we put into the corner goals. So all a rookie has to do is drive up to it, have balls drop in, then they just have like a single motor just kind of shoot that opens out and it can just pour into that slot into the corner goal.
Okay.
And so one of the reasons why there is points for the deactivated version of each level as well is so that rookies throughout the entire match can get one ball for 1 point into the bottom goal. And then when it becomes activated, rookies are now on the same playing field as everyone else. They can score these balls for 3 points each. They can just drive up, dump, and move on. And so when you
Got
get
it.
to that point, rookies are actually just as capable as long as they have a drivetrain that's fast enough as these other high tier robots that you can see. And so that helps
Okay.
bring the floor up for most teams. And we thought
That's
that was
great.
important to do
Yeah, that's great.
because there's a lot of games and you see a lot of other CAD challenges, that these rookie bots have to do. Like the bare minimum is just absolutely crazy. And so we wanted to make sure that, every bot for this game was still somewhat competitive so that every team had the chance to be, to have fun, to have a chance at winning that regional.
And it's not even just rookie teams that might have problems here. We've seen, we talked to teams this year who said, they're long-term teams, but their CAD people are gone, and they're kind of having to do a reset. They're having to try and learn this stuff again. So the team itself may not be rookie, but the CAD team might be.
Yep. And so we've actually been in some of the calls with our team 1902, and we've heard some students being like, yeah, this is great, this feels like we're reading an actual game manual, which I don't know about you, Brian, but I sat there and I was super happy to hear that because that is exactly what we wanted with this game, is that we wanted a stress-free replica of what a game release would be like. And so hearing that from some of the competing students was just great.
Hopefully it feels like a week 3 or week 4 version of the game manual once they started to work a little of the bugs out.
Yes.
I mean, we've been answering questions in our Q&A on Chief Delphi, and we haven't actually needed to make an update to the game manual.
Yeah.
That's a good position to be in.
And we had one person who actually asked a really interesting question that I didn't think about, and they were like, what if we deploy a non-moving mini-bot onto the pole? Do we still need a control system? Which was a really weird question, because if you place it onto the pole and it doesn't move, it's worth no points. And so,
Really?
Yeah, because you have to be outside of the deployment zone.
Oh, that's right. You have to get out of the deployment zone.
And so that was a really interesting question that we didn't even think about. So I think that's the only one we've gotten, though. That's like the game manual doesn't include it.
Yeah. And I mean, even from the conversation with our own team on 1902, we were getting questions that were more of clarification of the rules. So I think that Kevin did a great job going through and writing out the robot rules and writing out the game rules and the arena rules for this manual, because it's pretty clean, pretty concise. I mean, we even had 3 people while we were at ROBOTICON this past weekend go through and reading it over, and there was very little to say about it.
Like there were a few things like intersecting the alliance wall instead of contacting the alliance wall, but those are very minor. We have yet to have a, game breaking, like, hey, you can extend infinitely outside your frame perimeter or something. I don't know.
Well, that's good. So let's talk about how the CAD challenge itself works. It started this past Monday, I believe, at noon, right?
Yes.
Is when things went live, and we've got until this coming Monday, 11:59 p.m.
Yeah.
to get submitted. What do they need to submit?
So in order to submit, I have the game manual pulled up here. The absolute bare minimum are all of their team files need to, like, if they provide more than just a dot step of the robot or an on-shape link, they have to include their team name in those files. So if I went through and was an inventor team and I submitted my entire robot and inventor, all of my files would need to have 1902 in them, because when you have a robot open and you're judging multiple robots and you have all these parts and assemblies that are open, if it does not have the team number in it, it'll be very easy to confuse which robots have or which mechanisms belong to which robots. And so name all your files with your team number in it, whether it's your cadathon team number if you're in the unranked portion, or if you're in the ranked portion, your first team number. And then that's all we require is just the robot itself, and I believe its capabilities.
Yeah. A quick blurb on what the robot's able to do, and a link for the robot, be it from GrabCAD, OnShape, or the actual link to a file itself, which most likely would be through GrabCAD. And that's all we require as the bare minimum for this. Then,
okay, so if that's the bare minimum, what's the absolute maximum?
So
you got to give me the extremes here.
I guess. Sorry. I guess we can.
Great.
That's a great thing to ask me. So when I submit for other CAD challenges, me and my whoever I'm doing it with, we like to go above and beyond, and so we wind up submitting like 50 pages of documentation on a robot on top of the CAD and everything, because we make we make a technical binder that explains all of our strategic and design decisions, or at least as many as we can get down before the cadathon ends. We do whatever submission sheet is required, because those are normally like, what's your manufacturing capabilities, what's your assembly process, what's your robot capable of doing, what is it not capable of doing. And then we also submit our qualification strategy, our elimination strategy. We will submit an entire spreadsheet with every part on the robot, with what material it's made out of, whether a sponsor or us as a team makes it in-house. We submit a robot tracking spreadsheet that has all of our voltages, ratios, what plugs into what PDP, manifold, PCM ports. And we also submit strategy calculations to help prove that our strategic analysis was correct, because we go through and we do all this because we want as much practice for the incoming season as possible. And so we're doing cadathon after cadathon after cadathon. I think we did 9 since the last real season we had. And so every time we're improving our process, we're pushing ourselves further. So when it comes time to doing all this in season, we've gotten used to it. We've taught other people how to do it, etc. And so our ceiling for how much we submit is very high, because we're so used to doing this that we're open and we will read everything every team submits.
Okay, that makes sense, especially when you take into consideration what our goals are, right? For the CAD challenge in general, the goal is, it's been a couple of seasons. Some teams we've got one team that's never, until this past weekend, had never competed on a field with another FRC team. We've got teams that have not done any real CADing possibly in 2 seasons, so it's important to have this opportunity to pretend that it's a full season.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So this Monday before midnight, 11:59:59 is the submission date.
You can thank me for that number.
I didn't actually realize you went back through and did 11:59:59 for the seconds. I never realized you did that.
Yep.
That's so funny to me.
Well, good. It's precise. That's the point.
It's very precise. I could have added the milliseconds, but I didn't want to do that.
So actually, something to note on, Brian and I were talking about the submission deadline, and it's more of a soft deadline.
Than a very hard deadline. We didn't want it to be. We didn't want it to be that, because I mean, we're gonna take grading and trying to do our showcase for the CAD challenge by October 29th to 30th, which is that Friday or Saturday of this month. And we wanted it to be that, yes, we're giving you this week, and we didn't want to tell anybody that it was only going to be this. We didn't want to tell anybody that we were going to leave the submission date a little bit loose, because we wanted to say, like, okay, this is, you're in season, you're here, and this is, we got to get ready. But now that it's kind of been there, now we're like, okay, you can pull back on the brakes a little bit, you can pull back up from the gas pedal, you don't have to go too crazy. We want the submission by that Monday, but if you get it in before that weekend, I'm totally okay accepting it, because we're probably going to be judging as robots come in, and it'll be really quick for us.
Okay. And your goal should not be to do that, but if you need to do that.
Yeah. Because again, we're trying to foster a stress-free version of what the in-season would be like. And so having a hard deadline kind of defeats that point, because then there's always going to be those people who are going to be staying up overnight to get the CAD done. And so we wanted to make sure that no one was doing that, because, you've got your quarterfinals, PSAT and ICTs happening. We just don't want anyone putting their education before this CAD challenge.
Exactly. We've known quite a few students that have done that.
We want them to put their education before this CAD challenge.
Exactly.
Yes.
I think I misspoke there.
Yes. We absolutely want your education to come before the CAD challenge.
Yeah.
Grammar
Oh,
are
gosh.
fun. But yeah, no, it's been really interesting with this game, and I mean, Kevin and I are always continuing to go through and iterate on different things. So I mean, he and I work together through CAD. I mean, completely different spectrum from me. This guy is over here, but he's really good at what he does. He's always done really well with everything. I mean, and his improvement over this
2 years?
over this pandemic has been.
I never really did CAD. Like, I did a little bit before the pandemic, but actually, you know what? Do I have something from when I started CADing?
I would love.
I want a then and now comparison.
Yes.
I want a then and now. Let's see.
Because actually, we just got results. When was it? Thursday? Was it last night?
Was that
Kevin?
There's no way that was last night. Gosh, that feels like a decade ago.
Yeah, it felt like forever ago.
Wow.
We just got our results for Kevin's latest robot for 345 inside of the 1678 Cadathon. Yep. They submitted their game that they won for the game design challenge as a rebranded. We're going to do a Cadathon with this game just to see what robots were. And it was interesting, to say the least. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Yep.
But it was the latest robot is absolutely insane. Do you have them both pulled up, Kevin?
I do. I have my first robot I ever did on my own 2 years ago, and then I have the one that we did the other week. And so this goes to show you that Cadathons are super useful. And because this is my first CADed robot on the left, and there's a bunch wrong with it, but it didn't matter that, I was going in with no experience without ever CADing a robot before, because the feedback that I got from each cadathon I did helped me progress from cadathon to cadathon, because
Sure.
as long as you have, the I don't want to say the willpower, as long as you have like the intention of like improving and you're willing to put in the
Right.
effort, you can take the feedback you get from those judges, improve on specifically that, and keep doing that with every CAD challenge you take a part of. And so I've done I've done 11 of these CAD challenges, and I've CADed on 3 real FRC robots now, and each time you do it, you're always learning something new, you're always pushing
Mhm.
yourself to do more, and so I wouldn't be here right now, like, where I am with CAD. Heck, I have a job interview tomorrow, and I wouldn't have that if I hadn't pushed myself so far with FRC and CAD,
That's awesome.
because it teaches you skills that you not only are going to apply to specifically FRC, you can take those skills much further. And it all just began because I saw these cool catathons I could do stress free, right? Because it's
Yeah.
it's teaching you the same exact skills that you need to do in season to progress properly. And so I'm personally a big ally of you should do catathons or CAD challenges, because again, with each one, you'll get feedback. You'll see exactly what you're doing wrong. You'll see exactly what you're doing right. And so you can be like, yes, I did this right. But then you can also see, like, oh, I completely catted this wrong. So I know that I should look into this more.
Yeah, and that should be everybody's goal when they're doing any of these things, right? Is always take advantage of them to learn and to progress your skill in whatever it is you're doing. It doesn't matter whether it's CAD or painting or whatever it is that you're doing. If you get the opportunity to do it, use feedback that you get to get better at whatever that skill or that craft is. So it's
and that's
it's a
something
good
Brian and
life
I,
lesson.
Yep, and that's something I know Brian and I are going to take very seriously, is less of, because we will take judging seriously, but we want to focus more on the feedback that we're giving to teams, because it doesn't we want to make sure teams learn as much as possible from this catathon. And so we want to put that first. We will be doing judging, but we want to make sure that every team walks away with, a list of, hey, you did great at this, and hey, here's just a few things we realized that you could improve upon in the future. And so I plan on making very detailed, lists on that, because I want to help as many people as I can coming out of this.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of doing notebook judging for First Tech Challenge that they're not allowed to do anymore.
Yep.
But
I
yeah, that
forget what
was
they replaced it with.
shouting into the dark.
Shouting into the ether.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not involved with that anymore. I didn't like the direction they went, because it became way too subjective and not nearly objective enough. So you couldn't give feedback because it's just how you feel about something, not whether or not they met certain criteria, right? And we've been talking about what is the criteria, what are the things that you're looking for, and every judge has the thing that they're looking for, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a First Tech Challenge engineering notebook, or we're talking about the CAD challenge or whatever. Every judge has a thing that they're looking for. I was about business plan. I focus on the business plan. If you didn't have that, your score was not going to do well for me. But like for Michelle, that wasn't her focus. So everybody kind of looks for different things. And I think that's how you end up with a good objective system. So you guys have the things you're looking for. You have certain metrics that you're hoping to score on. So
actually, I want to touch on
Everybody do
that. We can go through our judging rubric that we also released in the game manual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brian, would you like to go off on each point, and then we can both talk about them?
Let me pull up that game manual.
It is in your DMs on Discord.
Oh, well, look at that. Look at that. Automatically sending it to me.
10.5.2.
Yep, 10.5.2. Give me 1 second while Discord loads.
He was ready for you.
He was already ready. He knew that I was
you weren't going to be
unprepared.
ready.
He knew that I wasn't ready.
I wasn't ready when I joined the call, and like I had just a field CAD pulled up, and I was like, I should have a lot more pulled up right now.
10
Like,
point.
You could have tricked everybody.
5.2.
You didn't. Without that revelation, everybody would have believed you were ready to go.
No, I was definitely not.
All right. So what have we got?
So we have quite a few points here. Totaling 44, 40, 50 points. Yeah, it is 50.
That was an accident.
That was completely by accident. We did not mean that on purpose. So we have, what is that? 7 different categories. Starting off with efficiency. Going through, we want to make sure that the robot is not like, it's one thing to have a robot that can go through and complete something, but saying that, yes, this robot can go through and complete this task 1 to 2 times inside of a 2.5-minute match versus a robot that can do that same thing 10 times inside that same exact 2.5-minute spectrum. That's where we're going to be looking at for those things like motor speeds, gearbox speeds, acquisition timings, cycle times, all of that. That's where it lies really under our efficiency.
And also your radio placement, because we have had quite a few teams in past that put their radio down into drivetrain, which for anyone who doesn't know, the lower you place your radio, the more interference there will be. And so when you place it down inside of your drivetrain, you're going to have terrible latency, disconnects with your robot all match. And so that also ties into your efficiency column. It's just not only how well your robot electrically works or mechanically works, but also electrically works. Because if you have a good mechanical system and you just kind of threw electronics in there, it's not going to work as well as you want it to work.
Sure. And you don't want to drop a golf ball on it and turn your robot off.
I will say this, if you drop a golf ball on a breaker, they're super small. If that happens, I'll be surprised. But if it has enough momentum to actually turn it off, I will be very surprised.
I thought I had one of those wiffle blocks in here. Must be out in the office.
Balls.
Those hey, at least those wiffle blocks do carry some weight with them to make it that it is easy to.
Yep.
But they're not falling nearly as far as they
No,
could on this machine.
Moving on to feasibility, this is more about how manufacturable your robot is, how assembly, dependent it is, and how hard it is to maintain. Because if you have to assemble each one of your mechanisms on your robot in order, like you can't assemble this before this and you can't assemble this before that, your assembly time is going to take forever. We mentioned machining. If your robot's made out of these crazy solid blocks of metal that it takes like a 4-axis CNC machine to create, it's not going to be feasible, right? Because it's going to be expensive, it's going to be machining heavy. It probably won't break ever, but those are the trade-offs you need to gauge whether or not it's worth it to your specific team. Brian, I don't think I have anything else on feasibility.
I mean, you covered everything on feasibility. I could not
Maintenance.
think of something else.
If you have a mechanism on your robot that will constantly break, or if it breaks and you can't fix it because you have to disassemble another mechanism, that will take points off of feasibility. Because I've seen teams who will put a swerve module on their robot, and if it breaks, they can't take it off or without taking off their indexer or something, and that's just not feasible.
Yeah, no. And battery placement. I don't need a drop down belly pan just to go through and change my battery every single match where I need my robot up on a platform to specifically just go like, it's cool, but no.
It's just an extra level of complexity that you can be putting elsewhere that isn't literally, I need to take my battery out, let me make some linear slides to slide my entire drivetrain downwards.
Exactly. With that, we'll go on to our next thing that we'll be judging, and that is CAD detail. One thing that Kevin does really well is CAD detail. So we've seen teams from the bottom all the way to the top. We'll see things that are really well detailed and other things that aren't. An example of a low detailed robot is it has a drivetrain. There's no motors. It's just, kind of just like a cutout box with some slots for wheels and just some kind of apparatus on it. That is something that I would say is low in CAD detail on my spectrum. Something that is high in CAD detail, the other end of the spectrum, is where you CAD in the staples of your bumpers. He does that, and I was like, that's just so much time.
So one of the reasons, or a few of the reasons why we one of the reasons why we think CAD detail is important is because if you don't CAD in, certain bolts, nuts on your robot, or plan out your wire management, you're going to run into collisions that you could have foreseen in CAD. And so the more detail you have in your CAD, the less likely you run into those issues. And so we wanted to award teams for doing that. And it's very hard to do, obviously, get every bolt, every nut, but it is very good practice to get into because we've had issues where a turret can't spin because a bolt hits a shaft or a plate that we just didn't plan for because we didn't CAD it. And those are some massive issues that you could run into that you can easily avoid by CADing them into your model.
Yeah, we always in our former software company, we always said that iterating on a whiteboard is way less expensive than iterating hardware.
It is the same concept here.
Yeah. This is your whiteboard. You got to get the design right, so you don't end up with those things that require you to tear it all apart and try again.
Yep.
This really takes the whole measure twice, cut once principle and throws it right on its head. Like, this is, you measure everything, because then sometimes you wind up where, and actually one thing that I did when I was CADing my robot my freshman year, when I was on 1523, I had found an issue in which our robot was too tall in the CAD, and honestly, they didn't believe me. They said, it's going to be fine. We go and get inspected. Guess what? That robot's too tall.
We actually had a similar issue in 2019. The arcade said we were like 135 pounds, and half the CAD team was like, "Oh no, it's fine. There's no way it can actually be that heavy." And so we built the entire robot, and it was 10 pounds overweight. And so we had to disassemble portions of it to machine it, just switch to thinner tubing or plate or whatever to get it underweight. And so that really hurt us at our first event, is because half our robot didn't function because we didn't have the weight for it.
So what do people think that CADing is for, if not exactly these things?
A way to just say, hey, look, here's our robot and what it looks like.
But it can't possibly be right.
No.
No. When I put all the real world numbers inside of here, it's not right.
That's why we do this. Of course it's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness. All right, what else have we got?
Oh, you want me to go? Okay,
yep, no. This is your domain.
This is my domain. For you, it was the notebook in FTC. This is my domain. I am the strategy guy. I will read the strategy write-ups. I will go through, double check everything. What it is that you have multiple forms of strategy for this. You have your design strategy on how you're going to go through and tackle down on kickoff and how you come up with your design. You have your in-match strategy, where you're doing, what are you doing during qualifications? What is your robot capable of doing during these matches? And is it able to execute it well? Then you have your elimination strategy, which is, this is what I'm doing if I am picked by this seed, this seed, this seed. That you want to have yourself planned out from soup to nuts with this CAD. You want to make sure that you have, so that whenever somebody comes up to you inside of a match, when you're in queuing, they ask you, what are you capable of doing? You say, here's my match strategy. This is what I can do. If you need me to do something else, this is what I also can do. So having even just a backup on that match strategy is quite effective. And even having a strategic way of going through and checking on your robot between matches to go through and make sure, like, hey, we know that this is something that goes through a lot of wear and tear. Let's go through and double check on that. You want to make sure that you are taking every single step that you can to make sure that you're keeping that robot as flawless as you have made it to be. Because at the end of the day, you are only as good as your strategy and as your engineering on that robot. And if you engineer it really well and you don't pay attention to your strategy, who knows where you could wind up? You could wind up not getting picked at an event. And while, yeah, it's great that we've manufactured a great robot and we had a great time going through and going to these competitions, it just leaves something to be desired when you don't get picked just because you didn't pay attention to, like, hey, you start kicking yourself in the rear going through and looking at, like, oh, if we only did this instead of that in this match, this helps prevent all of those headaches from happening, and you are ready before you even walk into that door. So yeah, that's why I'm the strategy guy.
Yeah, makes sense.
I would comment on adding more, but like we said, you're the strategy guy. I have nothing to add. That was just it. Moving on to documentation, though, we wanted to award teams for having good documentation because that's also something very important, especially in a CAD challenge where you need everything is all about the documentation, the presentation, and so we actually made it worth 40% as much as the other categories because it's not as important as strategy when you want to make sure something works. It's not as important as your CAD or how well your robot works. And so again, we only made it worth 40% of the standard amount of points because we wanted to incentivize teams to make their documentation readable and presentable.
And like for me, if I'm judging, I don't know. Just looking at a picture, right? I don't know. I need you to tell me what it is that I'm looking at. What are these parts? What are they accomplishing? And how does it get me to your strategy? How does it help you accomplish your strategy?
Yep.
Exactly.
Ryan, do you want to get the next?
Yeah, I'll take over aesthetics. Now, this is where the flair comes in. This is the fun parts. Yeah, exactly. Like the lighting inside of a show, or yeah, like the belly pan that Kevin has there. This is where you could be like, oh, now you don't even have to make it that you're doing this in real life. This could just be something to just show off your flair on your robot. Go through, add some color, add some identity of who you are as your team to this robot. And you'll be surprised on just how much a little pop of color can go, rather than just keeping that same that silver-ish looking color on the aluminum or the steel. Just that little bit goes so much further.
This sounds like a direct attack on Apple.
Hey, it could be. It could be.
Dang.
Wouldn't a little pop of color be wonderful?
Yeah.
I
Just a
can't
little pop of
imagine
color.
an Apple product with like green on it or something.
The IMAX.
Like the new IMAX.
Really?
The
Okay.
2021 IMAX.
Yeah. They've gone back to the color palette of the late 90s. It's
Yes.
wild.
Wacky. Moving on to our last category is innovation. We wanted to kind of keep the spirit of first. We didn't just want to see, robots that are effective and that's it. We wanted some level of creativity and innovation. And so we are actually awarding up to 3 points per judge innovation because we want to see new mechanisms. We want to see new approaches to the same old tasks. And so that's why that's there, is because we wanted to keep kind of like the spirit of first of not just copying everyone else, but put your own spin on it, put your own creative, new, fresh spin on it to make it better, more creative, more interesting, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I think we should recap how many points each one of the categories are worth.
We should, just so that people have a know on
Yep.
what's going on. An idea, not a know. What the heck? English. So to go through efficiency, our first category is worth 10 points.
Yep.
Feasibility, 10 points. CAD detail, 10 points. Strategy, 10 points. Documentation is where we drop it down to that 40% range, going down to 4 points. Aesthetics and innovation are both 3 points each.
So the reason why strategy, CAD detail, feasibility, and efficiency are all worth 10 points, like we said earlier, is those are the major 4 things that define a robot. Actually, those are the 4 things that determine whether or not, depending on how much effort and time and money you put into, define how good your robot will be. And the other 3 are worth less because they aren't nearly as important as those primary 4 categories, but they're still important towards, imagery, defining who you are, presenting yourself, and like we said earlier, innovating on old concepts in new ways.
Exactly.
And
And
you go.
I mean, so to go through and continue on from that point, you can have a great robot that goes through and it's just silver or wash just right in front of you moving back and forth. That robot could be absolutely amazing, and you don't have to go through add the color to it. We've seen it in actual FRC before, that there are some top competitors that just don't add into the aesthetics, that don't go through and move into those other categories, but build really effective robots. So that's why those 4 categories can make or break you versus the other ones.
Makes sense. Well, I cannot wait to get back together and talk about the results of this.
Yeah.
Once all that's put together, it should be a ton of fun to talk about what you saw. What stood out, hopefully positively. But that'll be a great conversation. And when do we expect all of that to be possible?
So we don't know just yet.
Okay.
It's either going to be Friday the 29th or Saturday the 30th, one of those 2 days.
It's before Halloween.
Yeah, just before Halloween.
Great.
100%.
Right before Halloween, isn't it?
Yeah,
Great.
right before Halloween.
Okay.
I don't want it to wind up like some other catathons that we've seen, in which we're still waiting on some results for, what is it now? Since before August?
2.5 months.
We don't want to wait until February. Got it.
No, we don't.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Obviously, that's not the only thing that we've got going on right now, though.
No.
This weekend, we've got a couple of exciting things going on. The first is, we'll say that this weekend is a short one. We're only Saturday, and festivities don't kick off until 2 officially, because we have less going on. This is Alumni Weekend. We have 2 primary events. The first is that we are going to show off the first real-world preview from Next Robotics, which is our own in-house competition. I know we announced this a long time ago, and we teased it even longer. But, the last couple of years have been weird, and so things got delayed. If you've been around the Roboticon community for a while, you've probably seen the Next logo popping up around the Yingling Center, and even when it was the Sundome, with absolutely no context. And then at the last Roboticon, last in-person regular Roboticon, we announced that 2021 was going to be the kickoff. Well, we know how that went. Or 2020 was going to be the kickoff. We know how that went. And then this year was supposed to be the kickoff. Well, the world didn't fully start spinning. So, so 2022 will be the initial season for Next. We're really excited about it. We did a game challenge last year, and the winning team has been working real hard to put together a field that will be at Amrock on Saturday to the best of my knowledge, they have also put together a robot to play the game. And the goal will be for alumni to be able to interact with their machine, to be able to see how the game is played, be able to talk to the game team to get better ideas. And then at ROBOTICON 2022, we will have the ability to show off the actual game and compete with it. We want alumni to be involved in this. So we'll talk, closer to 2022 on exactly how to join a team. But since you'll have a full understanding of what the game will be on Saturday, because you'll get to see the field, you'll have some time to put together what your plan is. Schools can sign up. Obviously USF and UCF had better sign up. Florida Poly had better sign up, or we're going to have some words. But we're hoping to have teams outside of the three that we have direct relationships with. So it should be a lot of fun. And then after our next showcase, we will get to have a game night. We've got the name has slipped my mind. Will one of you show me the back of your shirt?
The back of the shirt?
Yes. Rezo. Thank you, because we have the sponsors on the back of the shirt. And
yes.
So Rezo is running our game night tomorrow night. They're going to have all kinds of stuff there, some consoles and computers. We're going to do VR. We've got board games and card games. And we'll even have drop mix. So a little bit of everything. It should be a ton of fun. There is a link. Sorry, on my screen, there's a comment above the next robotics comment on Facebook that is in Spanish, and I don't know why.
Okay.
I typed the comment. I don't know why there should be Spanish anywhere near it.
Okay, then.
Anyway, yeah. So there's on the Roboticon website, there's a sign up. All you have to do is sign up to join us. I think there might be a $5 fee to help offset the cost of food, something like that, but it's going to be a ton of fun. Hopefully our whole team will be there. I know Terry has had an interesting week. We'll see what her availability is, but the whole team, the majority of the team will be there. And then we'll have alumni and just have a fun afternoon. We haven't gotten to have like an alumni afternoon or evening in a while. So we definitely are looking forward to that. And I think all of us who have been volunteering for the event this year could really use it. So a day to be together where we don't have to worry about cameras and robots and children screaming and whatever other things the different volunteers have had to deal with. People ringing the back doorbell to come in. I don't want to wear a wristband.
I didn't realize there was a doorbell there on the back door.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's
There's
fun.
doorbell.
So there's a big red arrow pointing at it. Thank you, Gabby. People would just stand there and knock. No, we can't hear that from the front. Anyway, so if you're alumni, definitely come hang out with us tomorrow. If you're not, we will be streaming the next information for the first couple of hours before we turn into game night. I imagine you're going to be there, Brian, I hope.
I can't, actually. I have no car at the moment. I just sent my car in because I had transmission issues.
No. L to replay.
Yes. Fair.
All right. Well, some of us will be talking about what's happening, and I don't know who. It'll certainly be me, and we'll figure out who else. But we'll be talking about what's coming up. We'll definitely have some of the alumni from the game design team talk about the game that they put together. They talked last year, but we'll have some better information. It's always better for them to talk about it. Just like to have you guys talk about the CAD challenge. I don't want to weigh in on that because you're the ones who know it, and that'll be. I know next a little bit more since it's my program, but the game is definitely theirs. They know the intricacies of it. They put together a complex game manual just like you guys did.
Hey, that's great.
So hopefully if there are holes to be poked in it, people will poke them tomorrow. That's kind of the goal, right? Is to look at the game manual and go, hey, but what about just like what you guys have been doing online? We're hoping that the alumni will help us poke some holes in the game if they see them. But the game manual's been out there for a year. So,
I wish we got a full year.
We haven't had technically it hasn't been out for a full year. I think it's been public for a couple of months, but we haven't had any direct challenges where we've gone. So that's pretty solid. I'm looking forward to seeing the field. They've been working on it hard for weeks to get the field built and ready for tomorrow. So
that's great.
Should be a lot of fun. Obviously, I can't wait to get back with you guys and talk about the results of the CAD challenge. I can't wait to be with the alumni tomorrow. I'm very sad that you can't be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
But
I'll be back up next year.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll see everybody, all the alumni at Amrock tomorrow. If you're not able to join us, you can still watch us. Again, we will remind you that Twitch is the best place to do it because you can comment, you can interact with us, and we can see it better. And there's no random Spanish like there is on Facebook. Anyway, so we will see everybody back tomorrow. Festivities kick off at 2. We'll probably broadcast from 2 to 4, 4:30, depending on how things go. And then we'll go dark as we go into game night, which is just for the alumni. And that should be a lot of fun. So we will see you tomorrow afternoon. Ciao.
Ciao.
See ya.